multiple sources, leaked footage, and increasingly bold statements from insiders who are done protecting the organization's reputation, there's been a massive behind-the-scenes clash between Deion Sanders and Kevin Stefanski over how Shedeur is being treated, and what's emerging paints an absolutely devastating picture of organizational dysfunction, personal bias, and what can only be described as intentional sabotage of a talented young quarterback's career. The Cleveland fan base has reached their breaking point, openly calling for boycotts and demanding answers, while players are whispering what everyone can see. The Browns aren't just hesitant to play Shedeur Sanders, they're actively allergic to even considering him, and the reasons why might be far uglier than anyone wants to admit publicly. The frustration from Cleveland's fan base has moved beyond typical sports disappointment into genuine anger and calls for direct action that would impact the organization financially. Fans are openly discussing boycotting games, refusing to buy tickets, staging protests that would result in locally blacked out broadcasts, essentially forcing ownership's hand by hitting them where it hurts most. The wallet. When fan bases reach this level of organized resistance, when they're willing to sacrifice their own entertainment and game day experience to send a message to management, that tells you how completely the relationship between franchise and supporters has broken down. These aren't casual fans making idle threats on social media. These are season ticket holders, lifelong Brown supporters who've endured decades of disappointment, and they're saying, enough is enough, play Shedeur Sanders, or watch your stadium sit empty and your television ratings crater. The sentiment is absolutely universal among the fan base right now. Every single poll, every social media discussion, every call-in show, every conversation in Cleveland sports bars reaches the same conclusion. Shedeur Sanders deserves an opportunity to play and prove what he can do. The overwhelming consensus isn't even about whether he'll be great or solve all the team's problems. It's about basic fairness, competitive evaluation, and organizational competence. Fans want to see what they have in their roster, want to know if they need to draft another quarterback in the first round, want to understand whether the fifth-round pick sitting on the bench is a hidden gem or just another bust. But none of those questions can be answered while he's permanently glued to the sideline watching inferior players get endless opportunities to fail. One fan articulated the frustration perfectly when asked about expectations if Shedeur finally gets his chance. The response wasn't some unrealistic projection of 460 passing yards and instant offensive dominance. The expectation is simply that their quarterback won't look like a scared little baby out there, which is exactly how Dillon Gabriel has appeared in critical moments. That's a devastating but accurate assessment that resonates because everyone watching these games can see it with their own eyes. Gabriel looks overwhelmed, uncertain, and frankly terrified when pressure mounts and the game is on the line. Nobody expects Shedeur to be perfect or immediately elite. They just expect him to compete with confidence and composure, to look like he belongs on an NFL field, to give the offense some energy and spark that's been completely absent. And if he struggles, if he proves he's not ready, at least the organization will have its answer and can move on knowing they gave him a fair evaluation. The realistic expectations from the fan base are remarkably reasonable and measured given the circumstances. Fans aren't demanding that Shedeur immediately transform the Browns into playoff contenders. They're asking to see everything on the roster so intelligent decisions can be made about the future. If Shedeur plays 5 or 6 games and proves he's not the answer, fine. He's a fifth-round pick, and the organization doesn't owe him anything beyond a fair opportunity. But if he plays those games and shows legitimate franchise quarterback potential, Cleveland might already have in their building what they're planning to spend a first-round pick trying to find in next year's draft. That's just basic roster management and organizational competence. The fact that the coaching staff is refusing to even explore that possibility speaks to how dysfunctional and irrational the decision-making has become. Multiple analysts have suggested that Shedeur will almost certainly get playing time before the season ends, probably the last 4 or 5 games once the playoffs are mathematically eliminated and the pressure to win immediate games disappears. But that timeline creates its own problems because throwing a rookie quarterback into meaningful action for the first time in December, with nothing to play for except next year's draft position, doesn't set him up for success or provide valuable evaluation. If Cleveland was serious about assessing what they have in Shedeur, they'd play him now while games still matter, while the intensity is real, while the evaluation could inform actual competitive decisions rather than just filling garbage time once the season is already lost. The Baltimore Ravens game presented a particularly interesting wrinkle to this entire situation because of the backstory involving Lamar Jackson. According to reports, Baltimore was one of the teams that expressed interest in Shedeur during the draft process, and Shedeur allegedly told them no, because he didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson learning as a backup. He wanted to be a starter from day one, wanted to be the guy, wanted to lead a franchise, rather than apprentice behind an established superstar. That confidence and self-belief is exactly what you want from a young quarterback. If those reports are accurate and Shedeur finally gets his opportunity to start against Baltimore, that creates the perfect narrative opportunity for him to show the Ravens exactly why he turned them down. Instead, Cleveland continues trotting out Gabriel while their more talented option watches from the sideline, and the irony of Shedeur saying he wouldn't sit behind Lamar only to end up sitting behind Dillon Gabriel is absolutely brutal. The concept of the it factor that players discuss when evaluating quarterbacks is impossible to quantify or measure scientifically, but everyone who's been around football knows exactly what it means when they see it. It's that intangible quality